Alright, what's going on, guys? It is your boy TKD1 here, back here at PlayStation Source, and of course, as you await the official reveal for PS5 in terms of what the box looks like and different features and details of what we will be playing with hopefully this November, we do have some elaborations and more detailed descriptions and details of some features that we know of right now that is in PS5 that Sony has said. Things to the likes of the create button, as well as different things like party invites, how will they work, as well as the differences in how the PS5's operating system will work differently than PS4's. And all this is coming from the homie Tidux, of course, on Twitter. Now, obviously, this is not confirmed. These are just, what he is saying, but I tend to believe him and what he says to a similar vein of like Wario64 or ZHugeX, etc. So, those popular, insiders on Twitter. So I say we just read him because there's been really cool tweets that he has put out involving PS5 that I like to bring y'all's attention. So without further ado, let's go into some things about PS5 that could possibly be true, including create button features, party invites, as well as how the PS5's operating system will work differently than the PS4's. So starting off here, about 2 weeks ago, we of course got our first look at the DualSense PS5 controller, and on that controller there was a little change to what they would usually call on the DualShock for the share button. Now they have the create button, which is going to be a similar thing, but Tidux does lay out some differences that we could be seeing in this. So in the tweet right here, he says, "So what's up with the create button? It functions pretty much as the share button does today. New is the Creation Studio, a suspended app that's instant when you want to use it. Real-time editing tool at your fingertips, resembles the NVIDIA Shadowplay. The name may change in the new GDF FW. It's called Creation Studio." So I think that's just the development kits. They are calling it Creation Studio for right now, but that name could be subject to change in the future. But I think this is a really neat feature. Now, of course, there is something similar to this that we have already called the Share Factory, I believe, on PS4. I don't use it that much. I just, have an Elgato and export my gameplay, and if I want to do anything with it, I just edit it, on Final Cut, or, I use other software and not edit or do anything on the PS4. But I do, if you guys follow me on Twitter, at the KDS123, you know what I'm saying, I do post a lot of screenshots there. So I do love my share button, but this create button, as long as it retains that share button functionality and just adds on to it, I think it'd be really cool in terms of having new content creators come out and being able to, not have to buy a big PC to, make a video or something like that. Like if they could have the ability to just do it straight from the PS5 and make cool clips, maybe they might be outputting to other facets. Like what if, the button right here, what if this new functionality in this new suspended app that lets you real-time edit and everything, what if it lets you export directly to like not Twitter stories, that's not a thing. Wow. I mean, what if it, does Instagram stories or like Snapchat stories? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think there could be a lot of different ways where they can really bolster the creation side of the games you play and different aspects like that. So I think it could be really cool, you know what I'm saying? And I know a lot of people love NVIDIA Shadowplay. A lot of people like that feature. I think Shadowplay is pretty similar to Elgato's like flashback recording, where even if you don't press record, it'll automatically capture like the last, I think for Elgato it's like an hour, I think, or maybe even less than that, but it will still in the background capture a specific amount of gameplay, and when you want to capture something, even though you didn't press record, you can go back and grab the last 15-20 minutes, etc. And I think that's what they're talking about here. I mean, I think that's what he is talking about when he says that it's similar to NVIDIA Shadowplay. So big cool CS up there. I think it's really good to bolster the tools for creation on PS5. I think it could be really neat. Next up here, we have something about party invites on PS5, because allegedly those are being changed, and it seems to be really cool. So he went on a really long time about this topic. There's a lot of different tweets, and you'll be seeing them rotate as I read them here on the screen. So say you are enjoying Godfall on your PS5. Your buddy sends you a game invite to, let's say, Warzone, he says. On screen, you get pop-up screen with a live stream from his game. Your PS5 will start the game in the background. I think you meant to say but ands will be ready instantly. If you choose to accept the invite, your previous session will be suspended. We'll list some facts down below. Well, number one, launching can be set by the user to be automatic or manual. The PS5 will have thorough security to safeguard users. You can adjust settings to allow auto launching, but by default it is user accept and click. Developers can choose what is in pop-up window, whether it be a logo or a live stream of the game. Users can disable windows for text prompt, window pop-up, or auto launch. Users can turn on and off like a notification this generation. For example, dependent on network, when a multiplayer, he says when a multiplayer race, I don't know if he means like literally like a race like in a racing game, but we're just gonna go with it. When a multiplayer race is selected, I think he maybe meant to say game, whatever, is selected, it's instantaneous. This is down to the PS5 speed and the network. In theory, if both users have 10 to 20 megabits, then the background launch will be around 5 seconds. The primary screen will go into rest mode, suspend state, and the launch game will become primary. Once completed, the suspended screen will switch back. Users can modify systems to the way they would like it all to work. Now, all of this sounds really cool as long as it works, right? Like, I mean, I don't know why I'm doubting that it would work in just this seamless fashion, but I could just see me playing like, all right, let's say this gen I'm playing Final Fantasy 7 and my little brother, you know, wants me to play Warzone for a little bit. Like, the ability to just quickly switch instead of like, you know, suspending Final Fantasy 7 and then going into Warzone, loading that up, all that taking a little bit of time. If it could just be as instant as what he's saying right here, as in I get to see a live stream of him when he invites me, I get to see him in the pre-lobby waiting for me and stuff like that. I think it could be really neat to have me just automatically suspend Final Fantasy 7 and go straight into Warzone. I think it's going to be really neat, and I think it could also bolster that community of just multiplayer play in terms of, you know, not you know, it being too annoying to get an invite, you know what I'm saying? Because like when I mean, at least when I get an invite and I'm not playing that game, I'm likely not going to join because it would mean that I'll have to suspend, you know, this application. And I know this is sounding like a first world problem, I get it, but like the amount of time it takes to switch over from a different game from the game you're playing, it does burn a lot of time, you know what I'm saying? And it's a bit of a cumbersome thing to do, but the way this sounding, it sounds like it'll be very quick, very instantaneous. I do love the fact that they give the user these settings to be able to make it where you can manually start loading the game that you get invited to if you have it installed on your PS5, or you can have it be manual where you can choose to start loading it on a positive invitation. When you accept the invite, there we go, when you accept the invite for then the game to start loading and everything. So I think it's really cool. I think there's a lot of cool features that maybe like the devs can put in the pop-up window when it has up for a invite. Like when you get an invite, I'm sure devs can put really cool info in there that might be useful. I think it's all gonna be really cool. I would love to see this all in action, and I hope we do see it in action. And also, one last thing to bring up, I love that when you do choose to accept the invite, it'll automatically suspend the game that you were playing, and then when you're ready to switch back, it does it almost instantaneous. I love that as well. A lot of cool stuff here. This sounds really cool. We'll just see if it all comes to fruition. And lastly here, we have one more detail about the PS5 that I think could be really cool and could really bolster a lot of game developers in the future for PS5. So the thing we're talking about here is the amount of RAM that the PS5 allocates to the operating system, which is the main menu. So for this, I did go back and do some research in terms of how does the PS4 and the PS4 Pro compare to what the PS5's alleged, well, we don't really have, no, you know what, let me just read what he said first, okay? So Tidux first said that the PS5 OS reservation is actually smaller than PS4. This is due to 2 IO co-processors and on-chip RAM. So this is going to, I guess, fundamentally change how much RAM is being used by the PS5 for the operating system, because in the same way that, you know, when you get a hard drive that's 500 gigs or 1 terabyte on the PS4, you don't actually get 1 terabyte, you know, or 500 gigabytes free of hard drive space because the OS takes up space in that format. But this is talking about how much RAM is being allocated to the menu to be able to make sure that runs fluidly and just make sure it's ready and accessible at all times. And so over here on just some notes I just jot down with some research, the PS4 it obviously has 8 gigabytes of RAM, right? So 3.5 gigs of that is used for the operating system, which frees up 4.5 to 5 gigabytes of RAM for games. And so that other half gig in contention is due to, I believe, something called like flexible memory that the PS4 has, I believe. So that's why it's not exactly 4.5 gigabytes. It's 4.5 to 5 gigs. Nonetheless, that's kind of how it breaks down for the base PS4, right? For the PS4 Pro, there was an added 1 gigabyte for only operating system purposes only, right? So technically it's 9 gigs, but it is still touted as an 8 gig, PS4 Pro. That way, plus the 1 gig for the operating system use. So we still subtract the 3.5 gigs used for the operating system, which brings the total to 5.5 gigabytes now for games on the PS4 Pro. So PS4 Pros are, like games running on PS4 Pro have more access to more RAM of that given system. Now with the PS5 saying that the OS reservation is going to be less than 3.5 gigs seemingly, we could get a lot more RAM up being used for games, and it's going to be great. And so considering that the PS5 is confirmed to have 16 gigabytes of RAM, and if the OS is going to use less RAM on the operating system, right? So it's going to be less than 3.5 gigs. It's gonna free up a lot more RAM for those developers out there to really make really cool games and stuff like that. And I think this will bolster the size of worlds, of course, that the SSD is already going to bolster that amount, of having a lot more bigger worlds and different things like that. I think we're going to see a lot more worlds and a lot more systems running, and just games are going to be more complex because of the amount of RAM that the game can use on the PS5. So really cool to see that stuff there. I think it's going to be a big deal that a lot of people aren't really talking about, but I think that's a really big deal, having a lot less OS RAM being used at one given time, and at the same time having a lot more RAM as well in the first place. Is going to be really, really good for next gen. So that's all I got for you guys. Let me know in the comments below. How do you guys feel about the create button? How do you feel about the party invite system that is alleged to be said true by Tidux, as well as the operating system using less RAM than the PS4? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure also, while you are down there, to check out our description where you can find our Discord, our Twitter, as well as our Anchor link to listen to long-form content in podcast format. That, of course, being Road to Part 2, as well as Save Slot Podcast. And like the video if you enjoyed it, as well as subscribe to PlayStation Stores to keep up with the latest and greatest in PlayStation. Thank you for watching, and as always, greatness awaits.